welcome to my channel where I talk about autism from the stance of being autistic and being late diagnosed and what I've learned. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about masking. Most of us call it masking, although I have seen a couple TikToks where people call it camouflaging, which is a brand new term I learned. So if you call this camouflaging, same thing. So masking is when you hide your autism traits to be more socially acceptable. Masking is very harmful for us in the autistic community. Well, the more we hide our traits, the more we suffer from burnout, and the more explosive our meltdowns can be. This is why the Actually Autistic movement is so important. We need more autistic adults to talk about their experience and what they've dealt with, so that more undiagnosed autistics or newly diagnosed autistics find us to understand ourselves better. Because listen, I know as a kid from the 90s, everything that I have known about autism was wrong. All of it. So the more that we have of autistic adults to talk about autism and what we've experienced, the better. Because most of what I know, I learned from the 90s especially, was made by like old white guys who are not autistic. And the more comfortable we get in talking about ourselves and our traits and talking to other autistics, the more authentic we're gonna be. And the more we talk about it, and the more we're public about our traits and how we are, and we do things in public how we naturally are, the less backlash there's gonna be. The more masking, the worse the burnout is gonna be. So in turn, you're gonna be more depressed. Someone can get to where the burnout is so bad that physically and mentally they're gonna get more disabled. It is known that burnout can last from like anywhere from weeks to months to years to never getting better. And you can be permanently disabled from it. That's what makes autistic burnout different from neurotypical burnout. Because, well, neurotypicals, they do mask in a way, right? They're like, everybody's got their customer service voice that they use. But it's different from ours. Because whereas like neurotypicals are doing it more for like customer service and just for certain aspects of their jobs, we are, on the other hand, completely masking our entire identity, all our impulses, a lot of our personality. It's different. It's totally different than normal neurotypical masking. And burnout is different because of the fact that neurotypical burnout is usually just from like work stressors, whereas ours is just burnout from literally living. My burnout has gotten so bad over the years. When I still worked full-time in a school environment, I would cry constantly in the bathroom. I would just go to the bathroom and cry. And I didn't know what was wrong with me because I knew nobody else did that, right? Like I had to go out of the room to cry because I was so overwhelmed. And not necessarily from the job itself, because like, yeah, working with a group of kids can be overwhelming and can get overstimulating. But for me, it was more of the adult interactions. And I couldn't understand what was wrong with me, because I have always been able to tell that my experiences with coworkers and adult interaction was not the same as others. Whereas people were like, you can be irritated with people that you work with and be neurotypical. But for me, it was different, because it was like, I felt like I just couldn't get along with anybody. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And a lot of it had to do with how much I had to mask with these people, or like if I didn't feel safe, because not only on top of autism, I also have CPTSD traits where things can get overwhelming and trigger easily from that as well. So put those two together, let me tell you, it's very difficult to be a human being. And for me, adult interaction was just like so hard. Whereas, working with kids, I could be myself completely unmasked with kids, and I would not be judged. Well, I mean, they might call me weirdo sometimes, but I call them weirdos sometimes, but like, it's different. So, and I had to figure out, like, what is wrong with me? I was like, am I being a perfectionist? Sometimes maybe, but it wasn't to the point where it's like, no, it's not that because I was like, why am I so difficult? What is wrong with me? Why am I a difficult person to be able to work with? And like, it was weird, because it was like, it wasn't like I wanted to work alone, but it wasn't like I wanted to work necessarily with other people unless I knew it was somebody that like my mind would mesh well and we would be fine together. I would be so concerned with how my bosses, my coworkers would perceive me, whether it came to my personality, how I worked, any of that. It ate away at me eventually. I started getting chronic pain back in like, I have to even think how far back it went. I started getting chronic pain, I think around like 2015 maybe. And it would get so bad that I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, and it kept getting worse and worse, and I couldn't get doctors to figure out what it was. And sometimes it would be worse, sometimes it would be better. But I was really struggling physically, and then that takes a lot mentally. And back when it first started was when I was still with my abusive ex-partner, and he was pretty judgy because I was basically the main moneymaker. I was the only one out in the workforce, and so he was treating me bad. So like, while work was my safe haven, but it also wasn't, because I couldn't be myself. So I essentially ended up being where I was not safe at home or at work. So I was basically masking all the time, everywhere. I didn't feel like I could be myself around my ex, because he judged me for everything. Now I know that a lot of the things that he would abuse me over verbally and everything would be over autism traits. Stimming, I would be stimming, and he would be like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And would just like absolutely take it out on me. And I already knew I was kind of weird for some of the things I would do, but he would make it worse. So I couldn't stim at home, couldn't stim at work. Thus I was masking everywhere. And then my bodily functions were starting to internalize that and take that over. And I have learned now that I am diagnosed, I have fibromyalgia. That is very prevalent in both trauma survivors and the autism community, because we take all our stress and everything on physically that we internalize that, and it turns into chronic pain. And that kind of goes into the masking, it goes into burnout. Yeah. So whenever I was saying how like it can be debilitating and it can get to the point where your masking turns into burnout, which the burnout can then last forever and make you disabled, I'm a pretty big prime example for that. Given now I am in a very supportive environment, right? I didn't get diagnosed with my autism until last year. But I have been with my very supportive, amazing, loving boyfriend now for 4 years. But I was still like fighting all these things. I was like, why can't I work like a normal person? And then my pain was getting worse because I was masking extra hard since the pandemic while I was working, and it was really taking a toll. And my pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'm still not doing great with my pain. Even though, and it's been something really hard on me mentally, because it's like, what is my deal now? Because my job scenario is fantastic. I nanny for an amazing family who's very supportive and wonderful and loving, and I love my kids. I am in a great home environment with my amazing boyfriend. I mean, heck, my biggest stressful inducing thing is my dog now, because she is a psychopath, let me tell you. But even with that, even with her, it gets me down, because I'm like, okay, why am I still in so much pain? Why am I still suffering? What is going on? So when I learned that masking and burnout can turn into a debilitating thing and you can't bounce back from it, well, that might be my problem. Although it has also helped that I went from working full-time hours to now just part-time, and that's definitely helped, but like I'm still on the struggle bus when it comes to pain, and that might never get better, and while I am on my unmasking journey, which a lot of us go through once we get our diagnosis, it's been great, it's been interesting. Part of my YouTube channel is part of this unmasking, where I learn about myself and I just try to be me fully. Sometimes there's still something to stress about, because yes, we want to unmask, and yes, we want to be able to get to a place where we don't have to mask anymore. There are still certain environments where we don't feel safe, and we are still gonna have to mask to a certain extent. I am to the point now where I don't mask a lot anymore. The main times that I'm masking is like when I'm out in public, which for the most part anymore is just shopping, which still really sucks, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride with the masking journey. It's just one of those things where we need to get to the point in society where it is okay to stem and not be attacked. One of my biggest things anymore, especially with grocery stores being a huge trigger, with everybody that takes like the Karen videos, right? I think everybody first goes to like, okay, the Karen videos are only when somebody's being like super racist. It's not, because let me tell you, like, sometimes me and Tim will see some of these videos online about Karens. We'll watch it because, sometimes you want to watch them because sometimes they're so ridiculous. You're like, oh. What has made this new fear is that if I'm at the store and I have a meltdown, I completely unmask and I'm having a meltdown because I'm overstimulated and I'm freaking out, somebody might take a video of me melting down, freaking out, and be like, look at this Karen freaking out at the Walmart. Because there has been videos on like Karen compilations that I've seen where I'm like, okay, one or two things is happening in this certain particular video. Either somebody is on drugs or somebody's having an autistic meltdown, and that kind of really weirds me out, but that's another reason why we need to as a society talk more about our stories and more about our stems and more about how meltdowns can look, and hopefully gain more empathy towards normal society, normal society, but neurotypical society, because we have a ways to go. And with the rise of TikTok and Autism TikTok, which, by the way, is actually like a beautiful community. I have learned so much in just like a month's time from other autists on TikTok, and it gets really, really disappointing about everybody that is slamming people for being on TikTok for autism traits and Autism TikTok, saying that it's a bunch of fakers and whatnot, and all of us are still trying to fight that backlash, being like, just because somebody's not formally diagnosed doesn't mean they're not autistic, because you don't watch one TikTok and think, oh, you know what, I'm autistic, I'm going to tell everybody I'm autistic now. Because no, nobody wants to do that. You like, it's pretty clear based on the reactions of these TikToks that like society doesn't like autistic people. So why would somebody want that? You know, as much as I am proud of my autism, like the idea that people are just gonna fake autism for TikTok followers is just nonsense to me, because it takes a lot of research and understanding and all of that to come to a self-diagnosis of autism. And most of these people who are self-diagnosed, once they know and they are following other communities of autistic women, because it's usually autistic women, right? There are some probably men that are doing it too, that are self-diagnosing, but it's most prevalent in women because the fact that none of us were seen. There's still a stigma today of women can't be autistic. Thus, especially as millennials who are self-diagnosing, I am not self-diagnosed, I am professionally diagnosed, but self-diagnosis is valid. Stop attacking these people. Like, that's a whole different thing though. So this was my little ditty about masking. Tell me about your experiences below in the comments. I'd like to hear about it. Anything you would like to share, anything you'd like to talk about. And I will see you next time. Bye.